Now let's take a look at South Korean exports and kind of compare to Japan and to a certain extent China. So we see a lot more similarities with Japan here in South Korea. And so the big thing is we see same things, transportation, same thing we saw in Japan is very big here in South Korea. Machines, high-tech, sophisticated instruments over here. So we're seeing those high-skilled, high-tech secondary sector jobs that are very much more common here in South Korea than in North Korea, to a certain extent there in China. So what is the transportation, since it's such a big thing that I notice here? Well, cars. And so a lot of export of cars, but also passenger and cargo ships. And so one of the things South Korea has is a competitive advantage in shipbuilding. That's a big thing. It's a good thing. As the global economy grows, we're going to be increasingly reliant on cargo ships to move things. And here in South Korea, they make a lot of them, and they have that competitive advantage. Also, similar to China, similar to Japan, a lot of these sophisticated, batteries, computers, computer chips, stuff that goes into smartphones, broadcast satellites we see in terms of South Korea, they're making those too. They're exporting those same things. A thing we don't see as much there in Japan and China is the exporting of LCDs. That is really a competitive advantage that we see here in South Korea is LCD exports. One thing that distinguishes Japan from South Korea is here in South Korea, we definitely see more of the exporting of oil products, petroleum, refined, as it says, refined oil. You can't see the ... as refined oil and petroleum. So essentially here we do see a primary sector that takes a good amount of the overall exports here in South Korea. We didn't really see that there in Japan. Where are we exporting stuff from South Korea to? Overwhelmingly to Asia. So we're overwhelmingly where in Asia? China. So similar to Japan, the number one destination for South Korean exports within Asia is China. And in case of China, it's actually a greater trading relationship there in South Korea with China than Japan and China. That could be some related to some rivalries. We look at the United States and go back, we look at Europe, North America. A smaller percentage of South Korean exports are going to North America, are going to Europe compared to China and Japan. However, that's probably going to change. I would argue over time, all things being equal, assuming no big, huge war happens, you're going to see South Korea exporting more products to North America, more products to Europe, and less to Asia. Essentially, as South Korea industrial capacity grows, it's going to then have better products that are going to be more in demand, and that are also going to be export to a more diverse array of regions and destination markets. Another thing that you'll notice in South Korea is even more relationships with Oceania, and even more relationships with Australia than you would see in Japan, and certainly with China. So that's once again some Asian partnerships. You see large partnerships here with South Korea and New Zealand, South Korea and Australia. We zoom in, we can see a little bit more as far as those exports too. Brazil, Brazil is the South American core, and so it makes sense. Stage 4, highly income countries that have their act together, are going to be destinations for South Korean